Hello everyone, it is John here. No one hacked into my Anchor page or my Instagram, anything like that. This is my new show, In Progress. In Progress is about fashion, design, media, and the overall culture, regarding all of that. Some of you are thinking, or all of you, where's mi tierra? What happened? So here's the thing, guys. Mi tierra, my culture, initially was about bringing issues to my friends and to other people, and also issues regarding the Hispanic Latinx culture. Right. I am still very passionate about those topics, and initially, right, there was a first season. So a first season that took on topics like climate change, veganism, biraciality, all those social justice topics, right? And I'm not saying I'm no longer interested in those. I still, am very much passionate about those topics. However, the more I researched on those topics, the more I try to find people who were also passionate about those topics, it grew like very, very hard for me to sort of keep that interest. The best way I can put it is, if you are interested in a new topic, right? You learn about a new video game, or you learn about a new clothing brand. You want to learn all about it. You want to learn about how it was made or stuff like that. Maybe some of you don't want to know about that, but to an extent, your interest grows, right? After you find out about something and you become a fan of it. For me, making those episodes, I didn't grow my interest. My interest stayed the same. And, I know I don't need to explain why I'm sort of changing up what this podcast is about, because I'm making the podcast. It's my podcast. But I do feel like I owe it to, my friends and my supporters who did listen to that first season of Mi Tierra, My Culture. And, they showed their love. They posted it on Instagram stories, and they were supporting me. And, I just want to say thank you to those people who really supported the Mi Tierra brand, which is kind of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about brands today. But yeah, I just find this topic, this podcast is calling me. I think life is too short to not pursue what you want to pursue, right? And I know it's just a podcast. I shouldn't be that dramatic, but I am. And, if you want to stick around and see what this podcast is about, you're more than welcome to learn more about different design topics about interior design, topics about graphic design. Those are all things that I'm going to talk about. But if you really were sold on the Latinx aspect of Mi Tierra, My Culture, I can say this about this podcast and anything that I do, or that you yourselves do, who are supporters of the Latinx community. I think that we are bounded by our cultural roots, right? I think children of immigrants and people in the Latinx community kind of are bound by their roots at times. And what I mean by that is, we have that imprint that we go to college, we have to find this job that is gonna pay for our family's economic freedom, and you want to be a part of that success story that your grandparents or your parents started by moving to the United States in hopes for a better future and a better life for their families. So what I'm trying to say is that sometimes we can be bound by those expectations, and we don't want to disappoint our parents or our grandparents, right? Of course. And for me, I feel the same way. However, I don't like, my passion is not in like accounting. It's not in IT. As much as I like my major, the major that I chose was information systems, and I learned a lot. I don't think that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I know a lot of you can relate. So this podcast is about that. It's my struggle to find that creative outlet that I really want to pursue. And it's for anyone who wants to pursue that. And this podcast is for anyone who's really feeling that way, or just needs that inspiration to sort of kick off their creative careers or creative journey. In progress, I chose the name because we're always a work in progress. I don't think we're ever going to be satisfied with who we are, until we reach a certain point where we can look at what we've accomplished in any career, right? It doesn't have to be the arts. It can be in, a traditional career, and you look back and you say, yeah, I think I made an impact. Okay, so why did I, and how did I get to this, I guess you could say this, come to this conclusion that design is something that I've been wanting to do? And I think quarantine kind of gave me that. You already kind of know what you're interested in from a young age, but it's kind of like, since it's from your childhood and you deem it childish, you only associate it with when you were young, you kind of just disregard your interests as childish, as child play. Video games are childish. Cartoons are childish. But to someone else, that was their career. To it, like a TV show, you think that's childish. Your favorite TV show, like That's So Raven. People got paid to do that, Someone got paid to be a director for that show, that season, and people got paid to produce it. People got paid to write a jingle. That's so Raven. That's not the jingle, but you know where I'm getting at. And so if that's something that interested you in the past, and you're kind of growing up and you're realizing maybe the career path you're on, the trajectory you're on, isn't what you really want, I think that's where I'm at now. Warren Buffett has this strategy, where you write down 25 things or 20 things you want to do before you die. And from that list of 20, you pick the top 5. And instead of doing those 20 things, from those 20 things, the 5 things that you pick are the most important, and you try and do those things as much as you can, and you forget about the rest. And my top 5 things had to do with design. Like, I want to create a clothing brand one day. I want to direct a TV show or a movie. I want to own a coffee shop and design the interior, right? And then create the branding. I want to be a graphic designer, design logos for a living. And if people are doing that now, why not? Why not could it be you? Why not could it be me, who's out there making a living through the arts? And Mark Cuban even said this about liberal arts majors. I know this is becoming like a promo for liberal arts. I'm not persuading anyone out of their careers, guys. I'm just a guy with a podcast. Listen or not. Mark Cuban said that liberal arts majors are going to be in higher demand because of all this data that we're acquiring, right? Say someone wants to store all of Shakespeare's plays online, and we're gonna store all of this data online, and who's going to be the subject matter expert on that? Aside from programmers, aside from project managers who create software to then view this this information, who's going to fact check that? It's going to be liberal arts majors. It's going to be people who are subject matter experts. So the arts is what makes, in my opinion, what makes living so worthwhile. It's your favorite music. It's your favorite album, your favorite movie. They represent something. They're metaphors. They're similes for living. I'm just using literature terms there, but life would be so boring without the media. Life would be so dull without the arts, and subsequently without the culture. You can't have culture without arts. What about the Get Down? Not the show, but the subject of the show, which was the 70s Beat Boys in the Bronx, and the coming up of DJ Grandmaster Flash, So with that being said, I think that brings us to our first topic. But before I move on, I just want to say thank you guys who supported Mi Tierra My Culture. Once again, it was a moment, a good moment. Let's remember it fondly. But the brand is there. If you want to take it, by all means, continue the legacy. Do it with Anchor. Do it with do your own podcast, basically. But yeah, that brings me to my next topic, which is branding. What is a brand? Branding is what all I've been talking about. For instance, Mark Cuban. What do you think of when you think of Mark Cuban? The Dallas Mavericks. You think of the businesses he's owned. I don't know what businesses he owned besides the Mavericks. What do you think of when you think of Michelle Obama, right? Not only do you think of Barack Obama, but you think of the lunch program that she had. You think of her bright smile. You think of friendliness and warmth in the White House. Michelle Obama has a brand. Wherever she walks, her reputation follows her, and whatever she does is the essence of what Michelle Obama is. Meaning she's a classy lady. Here's an interesting tidbit. Now, who are the two major leading soda brands? It's Coca-Cola and Pepsi, right? Now, you would think that Coca-Cola and Pepsi directly compete with each other, which they do. In business terms, they're in the same market, which is soda, right? But when you look at their demographics, I saw a video on this, so I'm right. Basically, the video was explaining how the two drinkers are kind of different in a way. When you think of Coca-Cola, what do you think of? You think classic, American. It's not conservative, but again, it's a classic, right? You can't think of a summer day without a cold glass of Coca-Cola, not sponsored. And what do you think of Pepsi? What do you think of when you hear the word Pepsi? For all my 2000s kids, Britney Spears, she was a spokesperson. What was Britney Spears? Iconic, legendary, breaking the mold of what a pop star was, or defining it, depending on who you ask. Who was the spokesperson before Britney? Michael Jackson? Who was Michael Jackson, you ask? Revolutionary. Right? We won't talk about what he did later on, but Michael Jackson in his heyday, when he was a spokesperson or represented the Pepsi brand, he was revolutionary in music. And who was in a Pepsi commercial not too long ago during the Super Bowl? Cardi B. These three spokespeople kind of tell you a lot about who Pepsi is, what they represent. They represent the youth. They represent like a revolution. And so I think the same thing with Coca-Cola, but it's two different brands. Sure, young people like Coca-Cola, but it's not because it represents America. It represents a staple, consistency. Take two people, one who likes Coca-Cola and one who likes Peppy. Guys, I can't believe I just said Peppy. That's so funny. I could have edited that out, but I thought that was so funny. Anyways, back to the podcast. and just compare them and see the differences or the similarities you find in them. I haven't done that yet, but I can probably tell the different type of people, right? Maybe one's basic, one's like out there, or maybe they don't drink soda at all because it's unhealthy. Last example I'll go into, just to talk about brands in general, one that changed their brand from their mission, Netflix was originally trying to do, is not at all what it is today. Netflix started off as, if you remember Gamefly, well, I'm pretty sure Netflix came before Gamefly, but Gamefly, you could rent a bunch of games online and they'd come to you in the mail like however many days after. Netflix, but with movies, or Netflix, but with games. Netflix did that until they just started streaming and they became this revolutionary thing. Netflix now, its brand is simple. It is the premier version of what video streaming is today. It is the model that everybody leads behind. Hulu, you got Disney Plus. Disney Plus has its own brand. Disney has its own brand. Wow, right? How could we not talk about Disney? But Netflix is the king or queen when it comes to streaming. And you can tell in its layout and you can tell in its titles, they're on top of the game. And that's their brand. You think Netflix? Boom. You get streaming. And so that, in a gist, in a long-winded way, is what a brand is. And I'm pretty sure you all know that. I just wanted to talk about brands, so, sue me. When we get back, though, we will be discussing some of my favorite brands. Kind of what we've been talking about, but, just with brands that I think are very exemplary and deserve some props. So we will be right back. And we are back. Now, we're going to be discussing, like I said, some of my favorite brands. These are just brands that I think emulate what is cool today. Their branding is slick. Their branding is kind of timeless for the moment, contradicting in a way, but right now I think these brands are really like what simple branding is about and how like simple branding can be, so effective. Starting off with Complex. Complex is like an entertainment conglomerate, kind of focusing on the news. Started as for the culture, fashion, music type of blog, and has kind of ballooned into what is now many different shows on YouTube. Now they have things like a sneaker talk show, which I really enjoy, Full Size Run. They are the people who make Hot Ones. Well, they own First We Feast, and First We Feast produces Hot Ones. So they are master marketers of the YouTube game. Since they made Hot Ones, they made or are responsible for the Hot Ones memes and its popularity. And so many other shows like Sneaker Shopping and Everyday Struggle, which talks about like tea in the R&B, hip-hop, pop space. And so basically why I wanted to talk about Complex is because their shows have good production value, but at the same time, that would mean nothing if the content wasn't good. That would mean nothing if nobody watched it. So I think what they're doing right now with, their lineup of shows, their simple branding and simple name, Complex is kind of like, it just says a lot about the times that we're living in, as corny as that sounds, but it makes Complex very simple. If you go on their website, it's also just very hip. It's new, it's clean. It's a clean website, and you can navigate it. If you've never seen Complex, go check that out. Go check out some of their shows if you haven't, which I'm sure you've at least seen one show. That's the important part. It's that the mission is aligned with what kind of content they're putting out. Because if their mission wasn't for the culture, they wouldn't make stuff about music, hip-hop, fashion, sneakers, and so forth. They would just, they would be more all over the place. They're also about food, which is why they have that First We Feast channel. It's just satisfying how it breaks down. Like, you have Complex the name, then you have its different subject areas that they talk about, but it's all complex. Like, that's the brand. So whenever you think of one production like Hot Ones, or their burger show, or their many other, ethnic food shows, I think they have one about tacos, you never forget who you're watching. And that's what I think Complex does well. They also have this cool series. It's 24 episodes highlighting men and women. Some women, they can do a lot better, but basically highlighting people, trailblazers in different industries like magazines, streetwear. We're talking about authors, and also like talent agents. So I would highly recommend that one. That is also kind of an inspiration as to why I wanted to do this podcast. So Complex, a very big inspiration for me. On to the next one, OffWhite. Now, if you're not that big into streetwear, a simple description of OffWhite, I'm pretty sure it's the biggest flex out there right now. Creator Virgil Abloh, a very famous designer who is now the head of Louis Vuitton's men's department. He started off, 2010s, or, before then, but he created a brand called Pyrex. And Pyrex was just a simple screen printing onto like a flannel, kind of how Off-White is now. Just like the words Pyrex. And it was more streetwear. And for streetwear, for those who don't really know about that, streetwear is hard to explain. It's like, it comes from the streets, obviously, but what that means is it's more underground, right? People are rocking just a t-shirt with a brand, but that t-shirt means so much. And streetwear goes far back into, the 2000s and the 90s, back to Run DMC, like what they were rocking, and the B-boys, the people who would dance to DJs, right, in the 70s. So streetwear has a long history in of itself, and Virgil Abloh first made a streetwear brand which didn't really focus on the quality but focused on the culture. And then he goes and starts his new label, or his, the label everyone has now come to know as Off-White. And Off-White, it's very, once again, another contradicting ideal, that it's streetwear, that it's for the culture, it's for the kids, and it's like, it comes from the streets, but it's got that designer flair to it. And, we all think of designer as, one, high quality, two, very prestigious, and full of clout, right? Like Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Chanel. So Virgil's mission with Off-White was to create a luxury streetwear brand, and not just say, oh, it's luxury, but market it as the streetwear for a luxury market. And that's why you see people flexing an Off-White shirt, or an Off-White bag, or Off-White shoes even. It's kind of at the crossroads of those two worlds, of those two fashion worlds, which could warrant its own episode. You know what I mean? There's so many details about that venture for Virgil, and what it means to not only the streetwear community, but fashion in general. Off-White, I can best describe as disruptive. They went into the luxury market and shook things up. One could say that it led to people who had higher income, who were at first shopping for more streetwear, to get to a more elevated designer. I want the Balenciaga triple S's. I want Prada sneakers, right? So it's kind of an interesting effect that Off-White has had on fashion. which is it adds to the appeal of what Off-White is. If you wear Off-White, wow, you're rebellious. You're flexing on me right now, you know? So there's the appeal to Off-White. And, if you didn't know much about it, I would just check out their website and then see for yourself what kind of brand Off-White is. I was watching in a video where Virgil was mentoring a young man who had his own streetwear brand. And basically what he said was, I don't think streetwear brands need an About Me page on their website, because when you open up the website, that should tell you everything you need to know about the brand. And I think in his Off-White website, you see everything you need to see. It's disruptive, it's new, it's edgy, but at the same time, it's high quality. And when I say high quality, I don't mean in terms of the material. I mean in terms of what it means to wear Off-White. So he just did a great job, and everyone else who helped him work on Off-White, his whole team, to make it a prestigious brand. And that was their focus. That was their mission. And once again, it aligns with the content that they made. And lastly, one of my favorite brands, now I'm going to sound stupid again and contradict myself, but I really admire Jordan brand. While I've never bought or owned Jordans in my entire life, I really admire the brand because, like, I myself, I'm a sneakerhead, an enthusiast of sneakers. I don't have that many in my collection, but I do watch a lot of videos about sneakers, and just the amount of products that they've put out there, from the first ever Jordan, and there's so much history behind that, right, to today with famous designers such as Tinker Hatfield, CEO of Nike, supporting this venture. It has a lot of history and a lot of backing in the culture. And when I'm saying the culture, I'm talking about like people who are into fashion, people who are into streetwear, people who enjoy the sneaker for the idea of it. Michael Jordan is always considered one of the greatest basketball players of all time. That is a given. The marketing of yesterday, if I could be like Mike, is not what the brand marketing is today. The brand marketing today is a bunch of retros, so a lot of recycled models, but just in different colorways, in different variations of models. The Air Jordan 1, if you haven't seen it, it's a high top sneaker, but today they experiment with a mid top, which is just a shorter version of that, but it's not a low top. And they also do the opposite of a high top. They do a low top of famous sneakers. Do people like that? Not all the time. But basically what I'm trying to say is Jordan has a great catalog of sneakers, and along that are great stories of those sneakers. And really is why I'm interested in sneakers, is because they carry a lot of history with them. They carry a lot of stories. So, for instance, one that I can think of, Air Jordan 1 shattered backboard. There's a story that Michael Jordan, during one of his games, not an actual NBA game, I can't remember, but he shattered a backboard, and he was wearing an orange uniform. I might be getting that wrong, but just for the sake of me talking about it. And then they made that color onto an Air Jordan 1. And it sort of adds to Michael Jordan's mythical presence. It's like he's this all-encompassing athlete, and probably not the first athlete to get a signature basketball shoe. That was Clyde Frazier, who had the Clyde Puma, if you want to look that up for your reference. But Jordan definitely transformed what it means to be a signature athlete. People like LeBron James would get their own sneaker. people like Serena Williams, while she hasn't gotten her own signature model, she's been able to get, her own Off-White collaboration with Nike. Michael Jordan just really paved the way for athletes in sneakers and in fashion. I don't think you can have fashion without athletes or without musical artists, because they're all under this umbrella of what it means to be cool, what it means to be fashionable. Yeah, that's Air Jordan for you. While a lot of people in the sneaker community may not, they appreciate Jordan, but they just don't like it or don't wear it. I definitely appreciate it more than I would rock it. Personally, I might get some Air Jordan ones in the future, but only time will tell. I think what they do, it works for them. Recycling old models and also innovating and collaborating with artists like Travis Scott. I think they can only go up from here unless they really mess up. But Jordan brand, really good brand, stays till the test of time. I can remember first seeing people in middle school wearing Jordans, and that's the only way I knew about them. From my first sneaker memory to now, Jordan has had a lot of great releases, and still remains is that idea that, oh, this Jordan is a nice shoe. One of the more elevated sneaker models of all sneakers. You see people wearing these Air Jordan 1s with suits, these celebrities on the red carpet. It stays a staple in many fashion enthusiasts' closets. So Air Jordan, really good brand. I think just exemplifies streetwear. Overall, a good brand. So those were some of my favorite brands. Just off the top, I know I did not include a lot of women-centered brands because I don't know too much about them. There are women Jordans, and Jordan brand has tried to focus more on women athletes and women artists and women designers. So they can definitely get better in that. Off-White, of course, they have their women's line, and Complex, like I said, they had Blueprint. I'm not gonna defend them or anything, but at this state, they could all do a little better in terms of women inclusion and women design. But in the future, I will try and include more women-centered episodes and topics. All right, so that was my first episode of In Progress. I still plan on continuing quarantine chats, just because I think that's still important. We need to have fun in between all of this craziness. But quarantine chats will continue. But also I will be having these solo episode podcasts just to continue what I've been talking about. This has been In Progress. We cover media, fashion, design, and of course, the culture. Everybody stay safe out there and remain a work in progress.